Layer 14, countering helping defense with the pin and skip.
This layer of read and react could be taught much earlier if you see the need. There are no habits or skills contained in it that requires you to wait before teaching it. In fact, at the higher levels of basketball, it may need to be taught right away while you're building the first layer. Here's why. Put yourself in the place of your opponents. How would you defend all the basket cuts and dribble penetration threats of the read and react offense? If I were your opponent, I would overemphasize my weak side help defensive positions. Now, back to the offensive side of the equation. How would you counter your opponent's defensive adjustment? It's like a chess game. You've got to have an answer other than, well, we'll play harder. My answer is the pin screen and skip pass. Since we started teaching from a 5-out set, I'll begin with 5 out and then proceed to 4 out and 3 out. Here's the 2-player read and react habit for this layer. Even though it involves 3 offensive players, it's still a 2-man read. And unlike the other habits of the offense, the 2 players on the weak side are not reading and reacting to the ball. They're reading their defenders and the situation. Here's what they're reading. On the weak side, there's typically going to be 2 weak side defenders in the lane, one low, one high. One defender is going to be a little closer to the ball than the other. The question is, on which of the 2 defenders should we set the pin screen? Well, answer this question. Which of the 2 defenders has the longest recovery to their man? It's this one, the one closest to the ball. This is the defender that they're going to pin screen. The weak side player whose defender is closest to him will cut hard to set the pin screen for his teammate. Notice I said cut hard because I want his defender to go with him. If he makes his pin screen look like a hard basket cut, as if he's flashing to score, then his defender is much more likely to go with him. Now the pin screener is occupying 2 defenders at once, his own defender and the one that he's setting the pin screen on. He should set the pin screen by placing his back toward his teammate and then yell pin screen or pin or whatever in order to get the ball handler's attention. His other teammate, who will be catching the skip pass, must get the attention of the eyes of the ball handler. This is accomplished by performing an unbasketball type movement, the PE class jumping jack. When the skip pass is thrown, the receiver has the options of catching and shooting, catching and driving, or catching and feeding the post. You can find pointers on reading the recovering defender on our video, Scoring Without the Ball. I'm not going to go into that kind of detail here. Now let's look at what's happening with the pin screener. After setting the pin screen, his job is to seal the next defender and open up to the ball. So as the ball is in the air, remember that you've got a possible post feed for a layup as soon as the ball hits your hands. And by the way, this is a natural way to transition from 5 out to 4 out 1 in, and from 4 out 1 in to 3 out 2 in.
Pin screen and skip pass when your set is 4 out, 1 in.
The pin, screen, and skip becomes even easier when a post player is inside. If the post is away from the ball, that is, on the weak side, then he's a natural pin screener. Just hunt the weak side defender and yell pin screen. If you're the post player, just consider that sometimes this is the best way to get the ball to yourself deep inside the lane. On the other hand, if the post is on the ball side, then the pin screen must be set by one of the 2 weak side perimeter players, just like I described in the 5-out set. Don't overlook that this scenario switches the team from a 4 out 1 in to a 3 out 2 in set. I know the other post could step out onto the perimeter or back screen his way out onto the perimeter, and your set would remain 4 out 1 in. But I like flowing from one set to another in a single possession. I think it makes things really hard on the defense.
Pin screen and skip pass when your set is 3 out, 2 in.
When you're using the 3 out, 2 in set, you have 2 natural pin screeners already stationed in the post. In fact, I challenge you to make 2 pin screen and skips in a row. Watch how the defense breaks down. I can't tell you exactly where your scoring opportunity will be, but I can guarantee you that there'll be one. 2 in a row are like 2 consecutive penetrating pitches in a row. They seem to wreak havoc with the defense. Defensive breakdowns occur that your players can take advantage of. This is a great lead-in for the chapter on zone offense because the pin and skip is made for zones. See it again in the next chapter.
3-player drills to build 2-player reaction habits. Pin screen and skip. Layer 15, attacking zone defenses.
Without fail, the question always comes up, what about zones? But it's asked like this, what about zones? You can't attack zones the same way that you attack a man-to-man, can you? The answer is, yes you can. Now, I know there are many ways to attack a zone, just like there's many ways to attack a man-to-man. Some coaches have a shoot from the outside philosophy, some move the ball, some move players, some screen the zone, some attack from the baseline, just to name a few. Many coaches simply have a big notebook of zone plays they've collected over the years. And I don't want to just add another play to your playbook. I want your players to be able to use the same habits and skills they've already learned, regardless of what the defense does. Now, at this point, we've been training players to attack a man-to-man defense. But think about this with me. Most man-to-man defenses are not true man-to-man. There are 3 players playing man with 2 zoning, or even something like 1 defender playing man-to-man on the ball and the other 4 zoning. Now, isn't that pretty much what a zone defense is? If it is, then we already have the tools needed to attack the zone. When I put this offense together, I didn't want a separate set of habits to teach the players just because the opponent had switched from man to a zone. So, the question became, how can we use the read and react man-to-man habits that are instilled in your players to attack a zone successfully? And the answer is, let's take those already established read and react habits and simply make a few adjustments.
Zone adjustment number 1, pass and seam cut.
The first adjustment to make involves our pass and cut habits. The zone is going to take away almost any chance for a layup from a simple give and go. However, zones have cracks and holes in their seams. Our adjustment is to change the basket cut to a seam cut. In other words, when you pass and cut, don't stick your head under the basket. Instead, slow up for a moment in the seam of the zone or for a window where the ball can see you. If you want to stay inside and play in the post for a while, then fine. But otherwise, just like an ordinary basket cut, fill out to an open spot.